Attacks on climate policies are not really about the science. They are about the future of fossil fuels. Any program with a reasonable chance of meeting the goals embraced by the 2016 Paris Accords, holding global temperature increases below 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels, is likely to mean drastic changes in fossil energy markets. And the task is only getting harder. After 3 years of leveling off, global greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels are projected to grow 2% in 2017 to a new record high. I have spent much of my career heading federal programs designed to foster alternatives to fossil fuels. When I look at what it would take to avoid the temperature rise agreed to in the Paris Agreement, it's clear that meeting these goals is an existential threat to fossil fuel industries. Decades ahead, carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for decades, so its climate impact depends on the total volume of emissions over the years. We've already added about 3/4 of the cumulative amounts that would lead to a 1.5-degree increase. It is still technically possible to keep total volumes of greenhouse gases below the 2-degree level if we start an aggressive climate program immediately. But the only credible strategies for meeting the goals that do not include dramatic near-term reductions in fossil fuel emissions involve enormous projects to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The most benign of these involve capturing carbon in plants and soils. While improved agricultural and forestry practices will be an important part of any climate strategy, systems capable of offsetting current fossil emissions through soil and plants would need to use massive amounts of productive land, water and nutrients. What about meeting emissions goals by primarily cutting fossil fuel use? In 2009, the US and other group of 8 countries agreed that meeting long-term climate goals meant that they should reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by at least 80% by 2050. Even with optimistic assumptions about innovative agricultural policies, meeting the 80% reduction goal would mean reducing US carbon dioxide emissions, most of which is released by burning fossil fuels, by 70 to 85%. Cutting fossil fuel use to this extent implies drastic and very fast changes to the world's energy patterns. In addition to forcing a shift to near-zero emission generation of electricity in the next 30 years, a successful climate policy would need to all but eliminate use of gasoline and diesel fuels for transportation and use of natural gas for heating buildings and operating appliances. Since much of the equipment involved lasts 15 to 30 years, power plants and pipelines much longer, new sales of fossil fuel equipment must slow or stop within 2 decades. Replacement time of these changes anywhere near feasible. I believe the huge emission reductions needed are possible with innovations in energy efficiency and low-carbon sources of electricity, as well as policies to promote markets for innovation. At the same time, fossil fuels can be a part of the solution if the carbon dioxide they produce is captured and permanently stored.